good evening, everyone. There's probably some more attendees still streaming in, I can tell. But let's get started and let's all learn how we can be part of something big. My name's Vicky Perrott. I'm the president of Geelong Sustainability, and I'm being your little MC around tonight. So it's my great delight to invite you and hope you enjoy this webinar. I think it's about our 4th or 5th, and it's been a great place to move to once the lockdown 4 started and we were forced to cancel our face-to-face events. But we're all good at Zooming these days, and I hope you'll be able to put your questions in the Q&A section there, and we have people here that will be answering them as we go along. I'd just like to start by acknowledging that I'm here on the water on land, and I'd like to pay respects to elders past, present and emerging, and to all First Nations people here today. And we in particular recognise their stewardship and continuing connection to land, water and community. And for the Waterong people, we really acknowledge and support their Healthy Country Plan, which is about making country good together. Thanks, Tom. A tiny little bit about GS, or Geelong Sustainability. We're a registered charity. We started back in 2007. We've always been about people-powered, non-political solutions. We are facing a climate emergency, but there are lots of solutions out there, and they can be good for our economy and good for our communities. So we think it's about time that we just get on and do it. We know what to do. And the next slide. Following the extreme bushfires of 2019 and 2020, we revised our mission to make it all about empowering people to protect and regenerate our planet. And we aligned our activities to these 4 UN Sustainable Development Goals, looking at affordable clean energy, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, which a lot of people refer to as the circular economy, and in particular climate action, because this is the crucial decade. Thanks, Tom. So why are we doing this community solar program? This is the reason. If you look at the uptake of solar in the G21 region, which are the councils area, the 5 councils across our area, you'll see that Colac, Otway and Golden Plains is doing well. Colac, Otway's only got 16. Greater Geelong is under 20%. And Queenscliff and Surf Close a little bit over 20%. We've got a long way to do to catch up. So the state government's renewable energy target is 2025. For 2025 is 40%, and we want to get to 50% by 2030 and 100% eventually. So we've all got quite a bit of catching up to do. And the other reason why we ran a bulk buy back in 2018, and we know that it's about trust in who you're dealing with. It's about the quality and value for money of the technology. The decisions get complex. And that's why after a very detailed due diligence process, Geelong Sustainability selected the partnership of RACV Solar and Mondo to be our delivery partners. And it's my great pleasure to introduce and pass over the baton to Tom McKenzie from RACV Solar and Dan Cowdell from Mondo, who is also a GS committee person, and he'll be telling you all sorts of things. And Tom, we're going to take you on a roadshow of Solar 101. So over to you, Tom and Dan, and enjoy.
Thanks, Vicky. That's awesome.
Thanks heaps, Vicky, and welcome everyone. As Vicky mentioned, I'm the residential sales manager for RACV Solar, so here to give you a bit of context as to how we came to be part of this program, who we are, and trying to cut through some of that noise in the market to provide you with some good advice, I guess, and explain all of the ins and outs of solar. Dan, would you mind explaining who Mondo is and who you are?
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, Dan Cadell. Hello, everyone. So I'm a community energy partner with Mondo. I've been working really closely with the team at Geelong Sustainability with this project. We're an energy solutions company, so we do a range of projects from really big infrastructure projects, sort of connecting in wind farms into the grid. We support businesses with solar and battery solutions, and finance solar and battery solutions for businesses. And we're lucky enough to work on these kind of community solar programs as well. So yeah, really excited to sort of cover off some of the questions that we'll have tonight. I think it's really great.
Awesome. Just to give all of you a bit of context as to who RACV Solar is and how they came to be. RACV traditionally has been a Royal Automotive City. I've completely had a blank. Sorry, guys. All about automotive vehicle club, and they've wanted to look to their members to expand into the home, basically. And part of that is offering solar, offering smart hot water solutions, offering heating and cooling as well, to build that all into a package to try and eliminate the need for gas, and turn it into a more sustainable future for everyone. On the screen, you can see one of our local projects that we've done at the RACV Torquay Resort. We installed 510 kilowatts of solar and 4 rapid EV chargers. And Dan's going to tell you a little bit about what they've done at Deakin University.
Yeah, the other picture to the right there is out the back of the Warn Ponds campus at Deakin University. So that one's a solar farm and a grid scale battery and a microgrid right across the campus. That project's been a really exciting one for us to work on. It supplies about 50% of Deakin's energy needs for that site. So it's really setting the trend for what's possible. And on top of that, they're also doing a lot of different research about renewable energy attitudes and interests as well. So it's, very exciting local project for us.
We're going to go through a bit of a solar and battery 101 at this point. At the start of this journey, we were presenting in front of people at the RACV Torquay Resort, and we'd sort of go by show of hands who's interested in solar and batteries. Some of this is going to be relevant for you guys. We're going to start at a base level and try and work our way up to sort of a higher level understanding of what batteries do and who they're for. So bear with us. We'll hopefully get through all of the questions, but feel free to pop a question in the Q&A. Just sort of the basic components of the solar system. There's an inherent inefficiency in the way we produce power, and a lot of that's over in Latrobe Valley, which is where I live. There's around a 20 to 30% loss by sending power all the way across the state in high power transmission lines. So by installing your own sort of power plant in the way of solar and batteries, you can really reduce those emissions as well as save yourself some money as well. So it's sort of a win-win. On this diagram, we've got the poles and wires out on the street in your neck of the woods. It's owned and run by Powercore. That then comes into a switchboard or a meter that determines how much power comes in and out of the property. We have an inverter that is wired directly into that in parallel. It will provide needs. If you add a battery, you can also have some backup power, which we're going to touch on a little bit later. Obviously, on the roof, we have solar panels as well that convert sunlight into usable power in your home.
So this next slide, we just sort of wanted to go back to school a little bit. What's the difference between kilowatts and kilowatt hours? They sound really similar, but they're different things, and it's important to just sort of understand this when we do talk about solar and battery systems. So kilowatts is the measure of power. If you look at a light globe or an appliance, they all have a certain power rating. Take the case of a 100-watt light globe here. If you run that appliance or that light globe for a period of time, it will consume energy, and that's the measure of kilowatt hours. So the light globe example, 100-watt light globe for 10 hours, that equals 1,000 watt hours or a kilowatt hour. Equally, you could run 10 of those same light globes for a shorter period of time for just 1 hour. It will still use the same amount of energy. So I think a really nice analogy is this one with the engine. Engine being, think about the capacity, the power of that engine size is kilowatts, and the amount of fuel going through it is kilowatt hours. Now, when we talk about solar, you'll notice that solar systems are normally rated by the power capacity, the kilowatts of that system. And so that's the peak that solar system can generate right in the middle of the day in an ideal sunny day. And as it generates across the day, it will generate a certain amount of energy for you depending on the size of that system. So when you have a look at your power bill and see the units that your energy bill's charged in, that's kilowatt hours again, so the amount of energy that you're using. So hopefully that helps. I haven't confused everyone.
Understanding the difference between those two is a really good place to start. If you have a look at your power bill and you can see what that average consumption is for the last month or the last quarter, if it's 18 kilowatt hours, we know that a kilowatt of solar facing north is going to produce in our region around 3.6 kilowatt hours per day. So working backwards, 18 divided by 3.6 is right around that 5 to 6 kilowatt mark of solar. And that's sort of the starting place of finding a well-balanced system. Obviously, there's a number of considerations. EV chargers, the appliances you have in your home, how you use it throughout the seasons, which Dan's going to touch on in a moment. But all of those things come into consideration when deciding on the right size solar system.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this graph sort of starts to spell that out. So if you have a look at the blue line, this is sort of a typical household consumption. Back in the day, I suppose, when we were leaving home for work, so you'd have a bit of a peak in the morning, getting up and turning on heating, using some appliances to cook breakfast, and then typically people are out of the house and there's a bit of a lull in the middle of the day. And then again, in the evenings, typically the sort of higher period of usage of energy for most homes where we're really, all the TV goes on, the heater again, cooking and so forth. The green line is a typical sort of solar curve. So you can see from the morning, it begins to ramp up to midday where you're generating the most, and then it sort of slowly ramps down again. And what's highlighted there is the portion of that solar generation that you're actually able to consume directly in the home. So when the solar is generating, that power is going straight to feed your home. The amount that's above that line, that amount of energy is being sent out back onto the grid. And you do receive a feed-in tariff for that, and we'll be touching on feed-in tariffs in a bit more detail later. But you can very sort of quickly see that there is a real need and a role for batteries in this space as well. So being able to take that excess energy and store that in a battery so that you can then draw on that for use into the evening. And if that system's sized correctly to your usage, you're able to sort of continue to run the home from that battery right through the evening into the morning. And so you become very self-sufficient based on your solar and battery system.
Understanding this solar generation versus consumption curve is probably one of the key components to designing a solar system, and that's really our job as consultants to understand how and when you consume power so we can appropriately size a system for you. We can do that in a number of ways. Number one is just asking you some questions about what your lifestyle is, whether you're working from home, retired, etc. Number two, we can get meter data from that smart meter at the front of our property that records in 30-minute increments. We can download that data and see how and when you use that power. A number of the other sort of key criteria that we're looking for as well is sort of the electricity tariffs that you're on. Obviously, the feed-in tariff has recently reduced from a minimum of 10 to 6.7 cents. We'll touch on that in a slide in a moment. You may want to remove gas from your house entirely if you currently have a gas connection, or you may be out in the country all electric. Obviously, your consumption is going to be higher. You might be having more kids. You might be having more people living with you, wanting to add a battery, electric vehicles, looking at ways to change the way you use your energy as well. Being aware of that curve and being able to visualize that in monitoring is going to help you maximize the savings. It's probably worth pointing out at this point, if you are getting quotes from any other consultants, that they really should be asking all of these questions, not just providing you with a quote straight away, because it's really important to understand each individual house and how they use power.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the other thing, Tom, is don't get too overwhelmed with that, because the RACV team's really there to support you through that process and understanding what system's really going to be appropriate for you. But there's heaps to think about. I should say too, before we go too much further, I can see a few questions sort of coming through in the Q&A, but if you do have questions as we go, feel free to put them straight into the Q&A. We've got the team here tonight sort of trying to answer as many as they can as we go through, but we've got a good section at the end as well where Tom and I will run through and answer as many questions as we can in the time we've got. Okay, so what about batteries? So we've got a huge amount of interest in battery storage across the program. So somewhere near 75% of people are interested in looking at either solar and a battery or adding battery to an existing system. So why? I guess the main reasons that are coming through is a lot about really trying to be as independent as possible with your energy usage, and that's certainly possible with the battery. So being able to, as we sort of showed in that graph earlier, store that energy that your solar is producing, utilize it later in the evening, and really reducing your reliance on grid power. So that's a big driver. The other factor that we're seeing, particularly after all the storms and hideous weather we had a couple of weeks back, just being able to protect your home with blackout power protection. So the way a normal solar system has to work, if the grid goes out, your solar system has to shut down. But by adding a battery that has the option for blackout power protection, it's possible to continue running your home from your solar and battery system, even if the grid's out. So that's another big reason. There's certainly some extra financial savings to be had from batteries, and we've got a slide about the savings later. And specifically with this project, there's the opportunity to take part in the future energy markets, such as the virtual power plant. That's really a way of just generating a little bit extra revenue or income from your investment in a battery by taking part in that virtual power plant. And I'll talk to that just a little bit later too.
So there's a number of government incentives and rebates currently available from left to right. We've got the federal STC rebates, just small technology certificates. That's a sliding scale based on the number of panels that you choose to install. For a 5 kilowatt system, it's around $2,200, $2,500 off the price, and it will be itemised on the line. So there's no eligibility. Everybody's eligible for STCs. On the right-hand side, we've got the Solar Victoria Solar Homes package, which has recently reduced in value after the end of the financial year. Sorry, the start of the new financial year. So we've got a solar rebate available, a battery rebate available, and also a hot water rebate available. Worth noting that you can only get one of those. You can't double dip. If you've previously had the Solar Victoria rebate, you won't be eligible for the battery rebate. The solar rebate's worth $1,400 from now until the next financial year. So for the next 12 months, there's also an additional interest-free loan to the value of $1,400 as well. The battery rebate currently is $4,174, but it is reducing to $3,500 as soon as the remaining allocation has been exhausted. There's currently, last I checked before this webinar, around 1,000 of those rebates left, but they are declining every day, sorry. So it'll be worth getting in sooner rather than later if you are considering taking full advantage of that battery rebate. There are a number of eligibility requirements for the rebates here, namely a combined taxable income of less than $180,000 per year, property worth less than $3 million, and it must be the homeowner occupier. So you must live there. Basically, no holiday houses are eligible. There's also rebates available for landlords and renters, as well as for business as well. So if you have any questions about any of those, feel free to go to Solar Victoria's website or get in touch with the RACV team. We're more than happy to walk you through what you may or may not be eligible for in terms of rebates. At the very bottom there, we have that feed-in tariff, which is very controversial at the moment. In the last several months, there's been a lot of unrest in the media about us having to pay to export power to the grid. And it's only a very small part of a much broader story, which is sort of what we're alluding to with this virtual power plant, where it's going to be part of a smart grid so that people with solar and batteries are able to support the grid in a helpful way that benefits their own pocket. But essentially what the news stories were saying that, you know, if we get charged for feed-in tariffs, is solar going to be worth it? A lot of people in the power poor region, due to infrastructure already going to be limited by sending power back to the grid, they may not be able to send any at all. So that feed-in tariff really is just a bonus, that we get on top of the savings. Self-consumption, as Dan alluded to earlier, is obviously a much better way to save that money. The technology that we're putting in now has the smarts, I suppose, that in times of need, the grid will pay us handsomely for power. So we're able to dynamically control how much power goes to the grid, but in times of when the grid doesn't need it, I guess, when you would be penalised for sending that power to the grid, we can ramp down or we can store that in a battery. So we're not sort of affected by that. So yes, it is something to be concerned about, I guess, but right now we have plenty of ways to maximise your investment.
Great, Tom. So look, this always comes up. How much can the system save me? Look, this table we've put together just to sort of demonstrate some common system sizes. So you'll see we've got a 5, a 6.6 and a 9 kilowatt. And then what happens if you add a battery to that system. We've put the standard prices there, and we will go into the pricing in much more detail later in the presentation. But you can see if I hone in on the 5 kilowatt solar system, so 14 panels, the standard price for that system, including the Solar Victoria panel rebate, is $3,640. And savings will vary based on your energy usage. So the lower figure that you see there, the 850, that's assuming that you're paying a tariff of 30 cents, which is quite common from what we've seen out there with people's bills around the Geelong and broader region. And the lower figure is based on 25% of that solar being consumed directly into your home, and the rest being fed out onto the grid and receiving the feed-in tariff for that. And then the higher figures based on if you're using a lot more of that solar directly, so using more power through the daytime, so 75% self-consumption. But you can save anywhere from that $850 to $1,500 on that smaller system there. And that's equating to a 2.5 to 4 year payback. And in fact, right across the board with the solar systems there, we've got paybacks under 4.5 years. So the financial case for solar is really, really strong. Certainly with the way interest rates are right now, you'd struggle to put your money anywhere else to get a return like that. So it's really solid. Now, when we go and add the battery to that, batteries in this program, we have a modular style battery, which you can sort of add in blocks. But the starting point adds just under $6,000 to add the battery to the system. And that will see savings anywhere from $400 up to $2,000. It is really dependent on your usage profile, and the RACV team can help work out what the savings are for you with the battery. But you can see what's very exciting is that the paybacks around adding that battery now are well below, for most households, where the warranty periods are with batteries. So typical 10-year warranty and 15-year design lives with battery storage, with the batteries we're offering in this program. And so we're seeing paybacks of sort of 4 to 8 years. So this one's been the first program that we've actually, community program we've done where we're seeing battery paybacks actually coming in under the warranty periods, which is super exciting.
And worth pointing out, although solar systems can save you money, and that's, what most people are looking for, there's a number of other reasons that Dan touched on. It's something that's fairly close to my heart, I suppose, living here in Gippsland. We've recently had a number of customers affected by floods. And of those few customers that had batteries, some of them were able to be independent from the grid for several days, be able to keep their fridges and freezers. So energy security is really important to a lot of people. It's not necessarily just about the payback. Obviously, it's a bonus now that it also makes financial sense. It's kind of those two things aligning.
Yeah. Okay, so just wanted to talk a little bit about the Geelong Community Solar Program and I guess what's different about it. That photo that you can see there, that's the launch event. So we've had the support of all the G21 region, all 5 councils across there. So we've got the mayors of each of the councils in that photo. But it's been really incredible, I think, since we started talking about running this project again. Second time Geelong Sustainability has done a bulk buy type project, and it's just been supported so broadly. So not only the councils, but we've got around 20 different community partners that are involved and have been helping putting on events and so on before we had to switch over to the webinars. But super exciting, and obviously Vicky talked about the reason Geelong Sustainability wants to run this and really boost renewable energy right across the region. when we put the project together, we really spent a lot of time making sure that the products and the equipment and that was offered was really top quality as well. So really selecting excellent product with long warranties. And I'm sure Tom can talk to that a bit better than I can.
Absolutely, Dan. I'm going to touch on the products in a couple more slides, but maybe just give you a bit of context as about to why RACV Solar has been selected as a delivery partner here. For those that weren't aware, RACV is running a solar in the regions program currently, where we're delivering 38 solar and battery systems with heating and cooling in some cases as well, to sort of community hubs that have been selected as relief centres, I guess, for high temperature days or places of crisis with bushfires, etc. So we are doing a number of those installations down the Surf Coast. So we have a big presence in the community and we really want to give back. RACV is a non-for-profit, member-owned community organisation, I guess, in a sense, but it is member-owned and we really want to give back to our members and the people of Victoria. So we are delivering that in ways of projects. But also RACV has that name. We've been in business for 118 years and we really want to be able to provide you with a system that we'd be comfortable with installing on our own home. So we've selected products that we know and love, but also the installation teams are local providers. I think Vortex Electrical and Great Ocean Solar and Electrical, they are our delivery partners for this job. We're not just getting subcontractors down from Melbourne to smash it out of the park. We really want to make sure that the investment that you're spending your money on is what you're getting, basically. And you also have that after-sales support and care that we provide that comes with the name. We're also donating, for every system sold, we're donating one panel to a community organisation with the intention of donating up to 5 systems across the region with all the panels and inverters that are relevant. So if anyone has any idea of a suitable non-for-profit organisation that would be deserving of those donations, please get in touch with myself or Dan from Mondo or any from the Geelong Sustainability team, because we'd really love to put that where it's going to be needed most.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great if there are any ideas. You might just be involved or have an idea about a not-for-profit group that could benefit from that. So I think the next slide's about the virtual power plant. So I sort of hinted what a virtual power plant is, so I should probably start from the start. Basically what it does is it's a way of connecting the battery in your home to other batteries across the community. And it's done in a smart way where those batteries can essentially join forces to become a bigger power plant and provide some support to the grid when the grid is in times of need. So occasionally there's different events where a big power generator might trip out and there's a bit of a problem with the power quality on the grid. That's the type of thing that a virtual power plant can sort of jump in and support the grid and help really, I guess, keep the power up and running for everyone. So we're really excited to be able to launch a virtual power plant with this program. So it's open to anyone in the program who decides to install a battery. You can participate by essentially signing on to the VPP or virtual power plant. There's no lock-in at all, so you're totally free to leave at any stage if you don't want to continue with it. And there's also no need to switch a retailer, so you can stay with the existing power retailer that you use, or sort of swap around and pick different plans based on the energy rates that you can get from different retailers. What it does is, for the majority of the time, the battery is there and it's being used for your home, and it's fully optimized by our Ubi, which is a smart energy management platform, to really supply your home and get the most out of that battery in a smart way. But I think about it as it's then also on standby for the virtual power plant. And when one of those grid events happens, your battery could kick in for about 5 minutes at a time. No longer than that. These events are sort of 5-10 minutes tops. And normally it would only drain the battery by a very small percent, so about 10% of the battery capacity. So there's still plenty of battery left to supply your home. but by doing that, you're able to get an extra $150 per year for participating in that virtual power plant. So happy to answer any questions about it, but something we're really excited about, and certainly just a great way to get a bit more out of that investment that you're making in your battery. I think the next one you can see there is just a snapshot of the Ubi portal. So this is what you'll see. You can see how your battery is being charged, how much energy you're using at any time from the grid or from the battery, from the solar, all in real time, as well as seeing trends as to how your energy's been going in the home, and compare yourself against other people across the community as well. So you can actually see a snapshot of how the community is going in terms of renewable energy generation.
Here's an image of some of the team, including Stephen, who's actually responding to some of your questions. He's the guy in the middle with the headset there. All of our guys are absolute experts in the field, combined experience, well over 100 years between all of us. We really want to be consultative. We don't want to put the hard sell on you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask us, and there's no sort of obligation. We're just providing you with a quote. And we are using those local installers, as I mentioned. In terms of the product packages that we have available, apologies for the fine print here. It's just really to show you what we offer. We are sending the slide pack out after this webinar, so don't have to write any of this down. We have the solar panel system on its own, I guess, standalone solar system that could be battery ready one day. We have the solar and battery storage, obviously, as an option. We also have the ability to retrofit batteries to an existing system as well. If you put in an inquiry, we'll obviously go through a series of questions and look at your power bill and determine if battery storage is going to be suitable for you. It's not going to be for everyone. You might not have enough capacity with the solar generation. Now we really want to make sure that that's clear. We're not just trying to sell you a battery if you don't need one. Here's a little bit about the products that we have available currently. On the left, we've got Trina Solar, which is our standard panel offering in the pricing structure that I'm about to go through on the next slide. Trina is manufactured in China with a 15-year product warranty. Across from that, we have a SunPower Maximum panel, which is sort of the premium offering, I suppose, manufactured in Mexico with a 25-year product warranty. So the difference in price on a 5 to 6 kilowatt system, there's probably around about $1,500 to $2,000. So you're really paying for a much higher efficiency panel, higher wattage, and a much longer warranty. So there are options out there for everyone. We have both Fronius and SunGrow in the center here. So SunGrow would be a standard offering that is manufactured in China. They have both a grid connect and a hybrid inverter available. Same with Fronius, that's manufactured in Austria, both standard string and hybrid inverter. Just to explain what a hybrid inverter is to those that don't know, hybrid inverter is able to convert DC power on our roof to AC in our homes, but it's also able to charge and discharge a battery as well. So it can facilitate all of those things at the same time. On the right-hand side, we've got BYD, which I imagine not many of you have heard of before, but they are the largest manufacturer of lithium batteries in the world currently. All of these products have been in business for at least 20 years and carry industry-leading warranties. So we've carefully selected them for their longevity in the market, also their bankability. We don't want them to go anywhere anytime soon, and they all have certainly proved that throughout the years. One of the big advantages of the BYD battery that we have chosen, obviously there's a number of battery options out there on the market, but BYD is stackable in 4 kilowatt hour modules all the way up to 24 kilowatt hours of storage. So that's one of the main reasons. It has a design lifetime of 6,000 cycles. If that's one per day, we're looking at around 16 years design lifetime. The warranty is only for 10 years, but we fully expect all of these products to outlive their warranty, and we have seen from past experiences that all of these products will most likely outlive their warranty period as well. Just a little bit about the battery and solar indicative pricing here. I really have to premise that this is indicative pricing, so we are assuming that this is all north facing on one roof, and that's a tin roof. It's single story, no additional switchboard works, and they do include the relevant rebates. So on that yellow line, the solar panel system, that does include that $1,400 Solar Victoria rebate. Below that line, we have the solar and battery systems with that $4,174 battery rebate currently available now, but that is reducing to $3,500. Worth mentioning, in order to be eligible for that battery rebate, you must have at least 5 kilowatts of solar on your roof. If you currently have less than that, we may be able to add some additional panels to get you over that 5 kilowatt threshold, and then we can look at some battery storage. If you are on a small premium feed-in tariff system, if you're still getting the 60 or 70 cents per kilowatt hour, like some of you may be, a battery may not be worthwhile for you because it's worth sending that power out to the grid currently. That is going to run out in November 2024. So a number of considerations to decide what we're going to do moving forward. But if you have any questions, again, feel free to put an inquiry with us. Again, that battery rebate is reducing $4,174 to $3,500. So that's, just over a $600 reduction. So it's worth getting in sooner rather than later if you are keen to do something. Just a little
Tom,
bit.
I think you might have mentioned earlier with that battery rebate, how many are left? Because I'm sure it'll come up again. Is there many left for people to be able to get?
Just over 1,000 rebates available, and they're reducing by between 50 and 100 every day at the moment. Sometimes it's a little bit more, sometimes it's a little bit less, but on that maths, we only imagine, another week or two, and those higher rebate values will be snapped up. A little bit about the process. If you like what you see here today or you have any further questions, we're going to put up a QR code at the end. Feel free to scan it, put in an inquiry. We'll also have a link to a website. We'll give you a firm quote. We don't want to have any surprises on the day. So if you are really keen to put an inquiry, we will give you an indicative price. If you're happy with that, we'll send an electrician out to inspect the whole property, ensure that there's no sort of hidden surprises come day of installation. Currently, our lead time is around 8 to 10 weeks from your inquiry form basically to installation. We have had more than 1,000 people register their interest with this program though, and we've just ticked over 90 sales, I believe, for the last month. So it is a popular program. So if you are really keen to join that queue, I'd advise you do it sooner rather than later. There's no pressure, no rush. I just don't want you guys to miss out. Just a little bit about what your quote will include. We'll have a detailed list of the products and their relevant warranties, a proposed roof layout or design, so we all understand where everything's going and there's no surprises. We have comprehensive terms and conditions. It's fairly condensed, but also we provide you with comprehensive analysis of your bill and what the return on investment is going to be, as well as those feel-good, environmentally friendly, how much carbon neutrality, how much carbon we're offsetting as well. So we can walk you through all of those options. In terms of purchasing options, obviously outright is easy. It's pretty straightforward. We take a 25% deposit up front, and then we upload everything to Solar Victoria Rebate if you're eligible. Remainders due upon installation. There is the Solar Victoria loan, which is now $1,400, not $1,850. It reduced as of July the 1st. With interest rates so low, I think CommBank's offering a green loan that's 0.99% paid over 10 years. It could be a really good option. I don't know your individual circumstances, but with a return on investment somewhere between 15 and 25% with most residential solar systems, spending that money now may be a really good option to save you money in the future. RACV finance is also available. I think there's a significant discount for members if you're a bronze, silver or gold member as well. There's also a non-interest loan scheme available for low-income households, so feel free to reach out. That is means tested.
Yeah, one other, Tom, just before you go on, might just be worth pointing out for anyone who's renting or potentially a landlord. I think you mentioned it earlier, but the Solar Victoria does have a stream for landlord and rental scenarios. So it does sort of require the two, the tenant and the landlord to be able to sort of chat to one another to get it worked out, but that's available as well.
Yep, absolutely. We also have a couple of other options available. We understand that, batteries are still relatively expensive and they may not be affordable for everyone. So another alternative could be to look at a smart hot water solution like a heat pump, which in essence can store excess power as hot water. So this particular example, the Reclaim heat pump, only uses 3 kilowatt hours a day on average compared to 10 for a conventional electric hot water unit or even more for a much larger one. So it's 75 to 80% more efficient. Because of that low energy consumption, we can run that during the day, during daylight hours, and we can consume that power directly and store it as hot water. So that can be a really good option. You're probably looking somewhere in the realm of $3,000 to $4,000 for that particular unit. We also have EV chargers currently available. They're universal type 2, but we can get an adapter for type 1, both single phase and 3 phase available. they do have the option to run directly off solar as well, if that was an option that you chose. How to get started? Dan, do you have something to add?
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to add, I thought I missed my chance, but just on the EV chargers, I know Vicky will mention it later, but Geelong Sustainability is running an EV bulk buy at the same time as this program. So, yeah, maybe one other thing that for folks to think about, it might be worth getting your EV charger in if you're looking to go for the EV bulk buy as well.
Fantastic. As I mentioned, if you are keen to explore your options and you would like to put in an inquiry, feel free to scan this barcode at the bottom. We'll leave it up on the screen. You can also express your interest at geelongcommunitysolar.com.au. Dan, we can probably take some questions.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. So we do have a bit of time to spend on questions. So I just encourage everyone again, if you've got anything at all, pop it in the Q&A, and Tom and I are going to work through a bunch of these as quickly as we can. There's been some really good questions come through so far, and I can see the team's been answering them. I'm just going to pick out a few, and we'll see how we go. So first one's from Martine. How long do the batteries last? And also interested in how they're recycled. So what happens with end of life around batteries, Tom?
It's a really good question. So battery life cycle, up for the last 10 years, we didn't really know, but we obviously have all of that data now. So we have a design lifetime of 6,000 cycles for these particular batteries, which is 16 years. In terms of what happens, we're still in the very early infant stages of lithium recycling, which is really unfortunate and is something that I'm pretty passionate about. They are starting to, or that some plants are becoming available that are able to process the batteries for their parts and extract the relevant heavy metals and reuse them, but it is really early stages yet. I guess it's just worth investing in quality components that aren't part of that throwaway society. We know that there's a number of cheaper battery options on the market, but may not have necessarily the same warranty. So yeah, that's about where we're at with recycling at the moment. Same with panels as well. There's a couple of pilot plants in Melbourne currently that are able to process a couple of pallets of panels per day, take the aluminium, the silicon, the copper as well, separate that into its parts. And I think they can recycle up to 80 to 90% off that panel, but it's still early days at this stage.
Yeah, I think as far as I'm aware, there's perhaps 3 or 4 solar panel recyclers around Australia at the moment. I think in terms of the batteries, though, Tom, that it's really encouraging. I saw the other day there is a what they're calling an Australian Battery Recycling Initiative, which is basically a group formed with battery manufacturers, recyclers, government bodies as well, and environmental groups, and it's all around really good custodianship and building in a circular economy for batteries. So things are happening, probably not as fast as we'd all like, but it's moving in that direction.
Absolutely.
All right, so the next one I've got, again, I'm just another one on batteries while we're talking about batteries. Do they need to be stored? Where can they be installed? So are they okay out in the weather, and what about inside as well?
Yep, absolutely. So they can't be installed in a habitable room. So that's obviously any living quarters. They can be inside a garage for sure. And if there is a place inside, my personal opinion is that they're going to last longer. But if there's no place inside, the only thing we want to avoid is a north-facing wall. Not because there's an inherent risk of fire. In fact, it's lithium iron phosphate, the battery chemistry, which is one of the safest lithium battery chemistries out there. They try to set these on fire at the testing facility. They're really resilient. Just at higher temperatures, lithium doesn't perform well. So we really want to keep that away from a north wall, but anywhere tucked on an east and a west or a south or inside a garage would be fine. They're certainly rated to be in the elements. You can put the hose on them ideally. I mean, you wouldn't want to, but you could. They're certainly made to be weatherproof.
Fantastic. Thanks for that one. Now we've got, lots more questions coming in. So yeah, keep them coming. This one's from Richard. It's about rebates. So are there any rebates or incentives that are available to holiday homes or non-primary residents? How does that work?
At this stage, none that I'm aware of. No, unfortunately. The state government has allocated X amount of dollars and they decided how they were going to allocate them. And at this point in time, they're not eligible for a solar homes rebate. They may be in future, I'm not sure, but currently, no. You still get federal STC rebates, but no battery rebates and no solar rebates for a holiday home that isn't your principal place of residence.
Yeah, fantastic. This one's probably quite relevant, Tom, just with the sort of storms we saw roll through a couple of weeks back, but with solar and batteries in an emergency situation. So when a bushfire comes through, if the power's out, what happens in that scenario? I think this particular person's a bit unsure about solar and batteries, and if there's a way that that can kind of work in around those sort of emergencies.
Sure. So it can provide you with two things, I guess. Number one is savings. Number two is emergency blackout protection. So not only will you be able to consume stored power in your battery, but it will also continue to run the solar system as well. So you could be independent for more than one day, depending on the size of the battery and the loads that we back up. Typically, we're very selective about the loads, power points and lights, maybe the internet and TV and the fridge, but everything else we consider a luxury, whether it's hot water or heating and cooling. There are options to back that up with battery storage, but the cost just starts to escalate depending on what you choose to do. I think that question may be specific to what happens if a fire does come through, because if the grid goes out, you'll still have power, but we can isolate all of the power if necessary. Emergency services just have to flick one switch at ground level and they can turn everything off if they really need to.
Yeah. One of the things we've recently implemented with our Ubi system for battery customers, we had a number of customers actually not realise that the power went out because their lights stayed on and they were quite happy. So we've started sending text messages to say, hey, there is a grid outage, and that's a really great way of knowing that there is some sort of problem, and perhaps start changing your usage up a little bit around that too. Okay, so we'll keep going. The next one here is just about adding a battery to an existing solar system or an existing inverter. What's the sort of options and how do you look at that, Tom?
Sure, no worries. So it'd be critically important for us to understand how much power is being produced in excess. So we really need a copy of a power bill to assess how power consumption and export is changing throughout the seasons. Obviously, in winter, we tend to use more power and export less, and there's less available from the sun. So we'd have to work out whether that's going to be worthwhile. But in terms of retrofitting, it's really straightforward. We can use a Fronius or a Sungrow hybrid inverter with the batteries installed below, and it will just, by way of magnets, I guess, is the simplest way to explain it. It will see if power's going back to the grid and it will charge, or if power's being drawn on the house above and beyond what the solar system can produce, the batteries will discharge to meet that load.
Fantastic. Okay. Got a question from Beryl just in regards to the BYD batteries that we've offered. So she's asking where are they manufactured? And again, the carbon footprint of panels and batteries.
Very good question. So BYD is specifically manufactured in China. I know it's a little bit of a dirty word. I guess it has been the last couple of years, but we've done extensive research to make sure there's no modern slavery in any of the supply chains of the products that we supply. To answer the second part of the question, the energy payback period for panels is within 1 or 2 years. For batteries, I think it's a little bit longer, but you certainly pay the battery back in terms of energy required to produce it in what you can store and consume in the home, well and truly within the lifetime of that battery.
Fantastic. Okay. Couple of questions here, Tom, about solar panel maintenance and battery maintenance. So we might go through one by one, but the first one's Gabriella's just asking, she's noticed there's a bit of green lichen on the roof. Sure. And, you know, what happens if that builds up on the solar panels and how do you stop it?
How do you stop it is with regular cleaning, I guess. For the vast majority of people, with panels above a 10-degree pitch, the vast majority of wind and rain will clear most of the debris. As panels begin to age, sometimes they can start to grow some lichen. If that becomes large enough, it can cause a hotspot on the panel. Generally, that will just trigger a bypass diode. It won't cause any premature failure, but it is something to be concerned about. I guess if there is a really big growth of lichen, if you're not capable of getting up there and doing it yourself, it is a service that we offer. We can come and do a complete panel clean. In terms of how much will that affect your performance, it's really, really small, 1 or 2% a year, really, if we don't clean our panels, unless there's really heavily soiling, which you would know if you're on a dirt road, etc. But in terms of maintenance on solar panels, it's really minimal. If you can see that they're dirty from the ground, you're welcome to spray them with the hose, but you won't find much difference in the performance. To answer the battery maintenance question, these are maintenance free. They're completely sealed. Lithium iron phosphate batteries, no maintenance, set and forget.
Great. And is there a recommendation around how often the panels should be cleaned, or is it just when they're looking dirty?
Correct. I think it would pay to look at them every year or two, just to be proactive, much like cleaning the windows on your house. I'm sure we're all guilty for not cleaning them for a year or more, and you can still see through them. But if you leave them too much longer than that, they start to build up some debris. So I'd probably recommend, every year or two, unless you're in a really high traffic zone with a lot of trucks and dust, then it may be worth doing it more often.
Yep, terrific. Now we've got James here interested in what additional costs adding solar onto a double-storey house. What would you expect to see there?
No worries. So for a double-storey house, it's probably in the realm of $500 to $1,000, depending on whether we need an EWP, which is an elevated work platform, to be able to access that roof. Basically, we've got to be able to do it safely. We can't just hang off a ladder. We may be able to get off there off a single-story roof that's beside that second-story roof, and then that wouldn't attract such a high cost. But probably in that $500 to $1,000 mark would be for the additional access and time it's required to do a roof like that.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, Karen would just like to know a bit more about heat pump hot water systems and sort of considering that over instantaneous gas hot water. So do you want to talk a little bit about that and maybe how it fits in with the solar panels as well? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, one of the advantages of instantaneous gas, I guess, is that you're not heating any water that you don't need, but you are using gas, and gas is going to cause greenhouse emissions, and it's not good for the environment. Heat pump hot water, we're able to capture some of that excess solar to produce hot water. So in essence, it can actually become free. It can become cheaper than gas to run a heat pump, other than the upfront cost to purchase it, of course, but the running cost can be zero. If you have excess solar that you're sending out to the grid and you could turn that into hot water, then a heat pump could be a really good option for that.
Yeah, I've been astounded by the kind of efficiencies of heat pump hot water service. I mean, it almost seems like magic, able to take that heat out of the air and turn it into warm water, but just phenomenal. And operating in a similar way to a split system air conditioner, really. It's technology we're quite familiar with, and it's certainly extremely efficient.
It will actually produce hot water all the way down to -10 degrees, and there's no backup electric element in this particular unit. They're so confident in its ability and its efficiency that it can still produce hot water all the way down to -10.
Yeah, good one. Now, we've probably only got time for a couple more, and then we better pass back to Vicky. I've just got another question here about new builds. And so this particular person's in the process of a new build. It's looking like mid next year. When's a good time to actually sort of start to think about the solar in the process of that build?
I mean, I would say the sooner the better. Unfortunately, a lot of houses, solar's kind of the last consideration after the roof design's done, everything's sort of done. But now's a really good time. If you have a set of working plans, we're happy to work through those with you, look at where things may not work around solar hot waters. And with this pricing, it is finite. We're looking towards the end of August, end of September for finalising this program. But if you do put in an inquiry now and we send you a quote, we're happy to honour that, for the next 12 months.
Great. Good one, Tom. So I think this is probably lucky last. Jenny's just asking about the rebates and just what the sort of longer term outlook is on expecting those rebates and incentives to continue or decrease? What's your prediction?
No worries. So rather than a prediction, I have more of a factual answer, but both
Good.
federal STCs and the SolarVic rebate have been subscribed until the year 2030. So they have X amount of dollars allocated and they are reducing until the year 2030. So the longer you wait, the more expensive solar will become. Obviously, there's going to be a trade-off there where technology becomes better and prices reduce, but the difference is, going to be significantly less than the change in the rebates. So it's worth getting in sooner rather than later if you are keen to put something on your roof or install a battery.
Good one. Oh, well, nicely done, Tom. I think we got through quite a few questions. I'm sure there could be more, so keep them coming. The team will just try and keep answering. But I just wanted to thank everyone again, and I will paste the link in the chat for everyone too. If you do want to express your interest to talk to the RACV team and get a quote or just have some questions answered, they'll be more than happy to connect with you. So thanks very much and great work, Tom.
Thank you. Over to you, Vicky.
Thanks, Tom and Dan. And this is the moment where there would be a great big round of applause if we were together, which we aren't. And so I will do it on behalf of everyone who's been in the webinar and congratulate you on going through such a thorough explanation of the benefits and features and offering people lots of quality independent advice and answering so many questions. So yeah, that's brilliant. So thanks, Dan and Tom, and to the other RACV and Mondo people. I just thought you might like to see what we did. We started with a very small 1.5 kilowatt system. We had the peak feed-in tariff. It gave us a return of investment of 34%. Amazing. And they're the panels which are on the rectangular roof that you see there. And back in 2018, we decided to fill our more difficult roof, our octagonal roof, with as many panels as was recommended. So we've got another 12 panels. You can see how in those few years they went from 215 watts to 285 watts. And I think the ones in the current program are even more watts per panel. We weren't eligible for any rebates. But it's that journey to zero, which is fascinating, and for us, changing our behaviour about when we use energy, and the challenge is always to try and survive without taking energy from the grid, and we're managing to do that pretty well. Certainly overall, we're actually still net exporting, and it's taken our house, which was probably only a 6.5-star house when it was built in 2008, and now under the scorecard assessment, it's actually made it a 10-star house. So that's been great. Thanks very much. And yes, as Dan mentioned, we are also wanting to tackle the 18% of emissions which are due to cars in our region. And so we've been doing this community group buy with the Good Car Company, which is a really fascinating social enterprise that is running these programs all around the country. And at the moment, they're here working with us in Geelong. And we've already had lots of test drives. You can book in for a test drive or a 45-minute test drive in a Nissan Leaf just by going to that URL, goodcar.co./Geelong. And also on Saturday, we're quite excited. So we're going to be at the showgrounds, and they will have a range of cars which are available, as well as a whole lot of local people who have been driving EVs for quite a while. And you'll be able to do a little 5-minute burn around the arena, which will be fun, and also find out lots of information, not only from the Good Car Company, but from people in the community that have made the switch. And I've done my test drive, and I just couldn't believe how much simpler it is to drive, and obviously so much quieter. So yeah, we hope people might also get interested in that. And just a little plug for what we do. We're a volunteer group, so this is the crucial decade. Let's get together and do something. There's various ways that you can connect with our group. We're always looking for new members and new volunteers, and asking people to get involved. Put your hand up if you're interested. Thank you very much. I'm going to hand back to the final slide by saying scan that barcode, and if you can possibly, in the situation suits you, let's get on board and let's boost that uptake of renewable energy in our region and make our transition to a clean and circular economy as fast as we can. Thanks very much for your participation tonight, and I hope you've enjoyed the webinar. Tom, you might want to say what is going to be sent out to participants next, do you?
Yeah, absolutely. So a copy of this recording as well as the slide deck is going to be sent out to all the participants within the next couple of days, I believe. Dan, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right, Tom. I think there's also a bit of an event flyer which we would have handed to you in person, so we'll get that to you in a PDF format instead. But yeah, thanks again. Thanks for all those really great questions as well from everyone, and yeah, hopefully talk to you all soon.